Roanoa Zoro, the janitor of the the swordsman of the Straw Hats. He set his sails out on a journey to fulfill a promise with his best friend, to become the world's strongest swordsman. He went through many battles and trials and tribulations pre-time skip, but once we entered post-time skip after a 2-year training arc with Mihawk himself, we saw something rather obscure but interesting. Zoro had not gone all out once, and everyone who had happened to cross paths with him honestly were that of a nuisance. That is, until Wano. Well, in today's video, let's talk about Zoro's highest difficulty fight. What's up guys, Versus Gambly here, and in today's video, we'll be talking about Zoro vs King. Like I said before, this is the first time Zoro had gotten pushed to his limit, and through this, he emerged as the King of Hell. Like always, make sure to like, subscribe, and watch until the end. For this, we'll start in chapter 1022. We move away from Killer and Hawkins conflict and we see King and Queen massacring the live floor. Y'all wanna betray us? I bet. Die. At this point, the traitors are relying on Marco, but bro is slumped on the floor. Right before this, Sanji was 1v2ing King and Queen because Marco is a bum, so now Sanji is on the floor as well. He tells Chopper that if the treatment isn't working, to take Zoro out of there because the current situation is too dangerous. In reality, they injected him, but the drug is taking longer than expected to take effect. Suddenly, Sanji gets up like he wasn't exhausted just before this and kicks Queen in his shits. At the same time, King orders the remaining Beast Pirates on his side to find Zoro and kill him before the healing method takes effect. Sparrow is still salty about the Whole Cake Island incident and decides to try and snipe Sanji while he's getting stuff done. As soon as he goes for it, Nekomamushi slashes bro in the face. Apparently, Sparrow is not the only dude salty about Whole Cake Island. The Beast Pirates have found Zoro, who is being carried away by the Alliance. Suddenly, in front of them, a tall black man appears and they get scared. What's Oda trying to say? King takes flames from his bag and engulfs his fist with it. He goes for the punch and Sanji, in reaction to this, starts running towards them. But someone gets there before him. A man engulfed in his own flames. He stops King's attack and drops a little bit of lore. I used to hear rumors about a certain fire conjuring race that lived on top of the red line. King the Wildfire, huh? King says nothing, but Queen breaks the silence. Marco? Yo, old ass still breathing? You Whitebeard pirates should just accept death already. I give. This is more than enough for me. I've done my part. The next panel is the mummy cross being ripped apart, and the minks reacting in shock. It's time for the stars to take the stage. Yo, curly brows, if we win this, yeah, I know, it'll finally be in sight. Luffy becoming the king of the pirates. Zoro and Sanji have attacked King and Queen in unison. The fodder Beast Pirates try to snipe Zoro, but Kawamatsu one-shots them. That one old guy, I forgot his name, he says that it was nice that Kawamatsu eliminated an outside force, but at this point, they should refrain from interfering with Zoro and Sanji's duel. They ask why, and he says for them to simply look at their expressions. They could only get in their way. At the same time, Marco is eyeing King, and he has a little bit of a flashback to something Whitebeard said. I thought only Mary Joie was above the red line. Nah, I'm talking about the distant past. Back then, God's Land was up there. Him having such a flashback blinded him from the current situation and almost gets shot, but Izzo saves him. King and Queen get up unscathed by the attacks of Zoro and Sanji, and so Queen blanks himself and his fellow All-Stars. Yo, if you want to take us down, you're gonna have to put your backs into it. That didn't hurt one bit. The drought, the plague, the wildfire. The three of us are Kaido's calamities. Our unstoppable toughness is why they call us All-Stars. Queen lets off light beams and Zoro and Sanji dodge. But Zoro notices Sanji grunting. He asks what's wrong and Sanji says he's feeling kinda off, but it's nothing. Zoro asks if he's gonna slow him down, but Sanji insists that it's nothing. While they have this random conversation, King pulls up on Smoke trying to slash Sanji, but Zoro stops him in his tracks. You owe me one. But just as Zoro says that, Queen goes in to attack Zoro, and now Sanji saves Zoro, saying that they're even now. Queen notices the flames coming off of Sanji's leg and says, Yo, I remember now, all of Judge's brats are enhanced. That bastard's crazy. That burning leg of yours is some kind of augmentation, right? Sanji replies saying, Sorry to break it to you, but I'm a regular human, unlike my siblings. Are you stupid? What kind of human can burst into flames? It's not like you're a Lunarian. To this, King glares at him, clear foreshadowing of his lineage. But seeing this, King is distracted and Zoro calls him out on it. Don't get distracted, you black mummy.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
They clash, but King's sword suddenly divides and he takes Zoro's swords. He goes for a punch, but Zoro blocks it with the sword in his mouth. Zoro says that King is just a bloodthirsty brute, and King just expresses that he doesn't understand why people stick to traditional forms and techniques in a real battle. As they fight, Kawamatsu looks and... oh shit, his name is Hirogoro. Kawamatsu and Hirogoro watch the fight and express that fate must be at work, as Zoro was the man to bring Shusui back to Wano. And just like Zoro, Ryuma was a one-eyed samurai. We cut away from the fight and we don't see a lot until Momo goes to the roof. But even at that, it's just Zoro and Sanji back to back discussing what the hell they just witnessed. We move on to chapter 1027 and shit is going off now. Entering the live floor again, apparently King is going wild. He's sending projectile slashes with his hybrid form around the live floor, and one of them eventually hits Zoro, having him get ragdolled through a wall and into Frankie. Frankie offers some help, but Zoro says he's good. The reason King is so mad is because Zoro cracked his mask and no one has ever seen his real face. King walks up to Zoro menacingly, and Zoro tells Frankie to step back. King goes in for an attack in his hybrid form, clashing with Zoro's Tiger Hunt. Zoro manages to cut off more of King's mask, but King manages to push Zoro through another wall and get him outside of Onigashima. But it doesn't end there, because as Zoro is still in the air, King pulls up again and hits him to try to get him fall off of Onigashima. But Zoro saves himself with an off-brand skywalk. That was close. You should at least use a blade when you go for the kill. What you just pulled is unforgivable. Same for you, he replies, and we see a little bit of King's melanin. We go about 2 to 3 chapters without seeing the fight. I mean, we do get this monster trio spread, and it looks like Zoro is on the back foot. But hold on now, because we enter chapter 1031 and onwards, and this is where the real fight begins. Sanji, after having a peak character moment, calls up Zoro and tells him that if he's not himself after the fight, to put him down. Zoro says that he doesn't understand, but he'll do it anyways. Now he has something to look forward to after his fight with King. Now, in the next chapter, we finally get to see how Zoro is keeping up with King. The first thing we see is King pulling his head back and sending his face at Zoro like a projectile, to which Zoro dodges accordingly. King says that pteranodons used to hunt prey just like that back in prehistoric times. Zoro sends a sword cannon at King, who is just chilling in the air, but he continues to dodge. He notices that if he cannot find a way to reach King, he's just wasting his own energy. I suppose pteranodons flew with fire on their backs too? Nah.
Really, nigga?
Zoro at this point is just frustrated at King's height advantage and sends off a great dragon twister. But King just blocks it with his wings. He asserts that he's on another level compared to dragons and dinosaurs and finally lets go of his height advantage, taking the fight to Zoro. But as they clash, Zoro is lost in thought about what King is. He notices that he's taking 0 damage and the abnormal features on him. And then he claims that he cannot win without knowing what King is. But just as they fight, a shamisen starts playing and Enma starts sucking Zoro. It was Hiyori, but that doesn't really matter. What matters is that Enma is now working against Zoro. King runs towards Zoro, but then suddenly stops and allows Zoro to attack him. As Zoro goes in for the attack, King just explodes. In the Sanji vs Queen fight, Queen drops some lore about King and his race. Apparently, King is a Lunarian, a race that could adapt to any living condition. But Queen is speaking in the past tense, implying the race is now wiped out. We see the aftermath of the explosion, and Zoro claims that had he not used armament hockey, he would have got one-shotted. But he recovers but goes in for a Shishi Sansan, and to no one's surprise, it does 0 damage. Upon getting hit by it, King ain't finished. He pulls his head back to go for a temporal udon, but then Enma starts sucking Zoro again, ultimately getting Zoro hit with the attack. King makes fun of Zoro's problems, but as this is happening, Zoro is experiencing a bigger problem. His name blades are gone. Sendai Katetsu is the first one that Zoro reaches, and he gets a small flashback on when he got it and who made it. He gets the sword, but King kicks Zoro back to Onigashima using Diabo Jambe. Just then, another sword lands in front of him. It's Wado Ichimonji. He also gets a little bit of a flashback of when he got it and who made it. Then he picks up Enma, who is still sucking him. But then for this blade, we get a more fleshed out backstory. An old man by the name of Shimosuke Kozaburo teaches Zoro about the battle cry Sunachi and ends up giving Zoro 2 blades. He explains that swords are meant to cut people down, that they're just like people, and a swordsman's job is to bend his wild nature to their will. And so he talks about the notion that some swords are cursed. He thinks it's a joke and that it's just how named swords are. He mentions his own creation, a blade named after the Lord of the Underworld, the King of Hell, Enma. And at that moment, Zoro had an epiphany. It all makes sense now. Why Enma acts the way it does. Why Zoro had been getting sucked off by it. It's because it was testing him. All this acting out of place was because Zoro was not ready yet. But now he is. Some fodder beast pirates pull up to try and help King kill Zoro, but now Zoro is pouring out all the haki possible to bend Enma to his will. And through this, he lets out Conqueror's haki, knocking out the beast pirates around him. And so the final clash commences. After Sanji defeats Queen, we switch back to Zoro, who has now managed to slice King's entire mask off. After doing this, he realizes how King's powers work. With his flames off, his speed increases but his durability gets weaker. The beast pirates who were just knocked out get up for the sole purpose of Lord dropping. What the fuck? Zoro looks down on King, telling him that he should focus on the fight. He asks King to tell him about his race, but King refuses, claiming that Zoro will be dead soon regardless. And so they start to throw hands. They clash a few times, but then they both assert that they should try to wrap up the fight soon, as fighting too long will kill both of them off. Zoro tells King that the beast pirates have sat at the top for too long and it's time to make room for the Straw Hats. But King is deluded and thinks Kaido will become the king of the pirates. In a flashback, we found out that Kaido was the one who freed King from the experiment grounds and gave him the name King. Acknowledging his strength, he makes him the right-hand man of his soon-to-be pirate crew. Zoro lets off a purgatory onigiri, but this time instead of actually hitting King, he's letting off projectile slashes. In the air after dodging it, King lets off an Imperial Dragonfire, but Zoro easily dodges it. They clash, but King tries the same sword trickery to take away Zoro's sword. Zoro isn't with it this time, however, emitting Conqueror's haki to push King away. He falls back, but then King perception blisses Zoro. This is when we know King is a dumbass, because like 10 chapters ago, King attacks Zoro in the mouth where he has a fucking sword instead of attacking anywhere else. And so Zoro is able to counter with his own attack. Now for the first time in the entire battle, King is on the back foot and Zoro is applying pressure. King notices that Zoro's caught onto his abilities and Zoro questions why King is blocking if he can't do any damage. King is panicking and decides, F it, I'ma let off my trump card. He jumps into the air and lets off extra large Imperial flaming wings. After an insane flash of light, only one person can come as the victor. The one who emerges is none other than Roronoa Zoro. As King falls, Zoro stays in the air, proclaiming something with an overwhelming aura. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I wanted to drop this video close to the Zoro episode and I think it came out well. If you did end up enjoying this, consider leaving a like and subscribing. I really appreciate it. And I'll catch y'all in the next one.